I'm still working inside that twoellipses.ai file that I modified slightly by adding red fills to the ellipses in the previous exercise. In this exercise, we're going to use the forward ellipse to cut a hole in the background ellipse. And I usually call this the donut effect. So basically, you've got a donut, you've got a hole cut through the center of that donut. That donut is essentially a compound path here inside of Illustrator. And anywhere where two subpaths inside of a compound path intersect each other, then you get a hole. So first of all, why would you need that? Why not just take that front shape and fill it with white, for example? So I'll go ahead and select this forward ellipse independently of the other one, and I'll change its fill color to white. And we get pretty much the effect we're looking for, but not entirely the right effect. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to turn off this drawing layer for a moment by clicking on its eyeball, and we'll see through to the shapes layer below. Notice that in addition to this big, huge crescent shape that's formed by one ellipse intersecting the other, we also have this black lower edge that gives it a little bit of depth. And we wouldn't be able to see that black edge behind the larger crescent unless we have a hole, because we'd be covering it up with the white fill. So this is what we do. Go ahead and turn on that drawing layer once again so you can see it. And then drag across these two ellipses with the black arrow tool in order to select both of them. And regardless of their fill colors, that doesn't matter for the moment. I want you to go up to the Object menu and choose Compound Path and choose Make. And that's Control 8 or Command 8 on the Mac, goes ahead and turns these two paths into a compound path. And notice wherever they intersect, we have a hole. Now you can select into a compound path using the white arrow tool. Notice you can't do it inside the Layers panel. If I twirl open Drawing, it contains just one compound path that I cannot twirl open. I'll press Control Z, Command Z on the Mac. What were formerly two paths, now if I press Control Shift Z or Command Shift Z on the Mac, are now a single compound path. And that is once again a PostScript thing. So Illustrator actually sees these two paths as subpaths inside of a larger path outline. So in order to select one subpath independently of the other, just so I can demonstrate how compound paths work, I'll switch over here to the white arrow tool, then I'll click off the shapes in order to deselect them, and in order to select the entire path outline here, I'll Alt-click on it, or Option-click on it with that white arrow tool, and I'll drag it to a different location. And notice the intersection of those two paths as a whole, the area where the two paths do not intersect, is not a hole. It gets filled and becomes opaque, subject to my opacity value and so on, of course. Anyway, I'll press Control Z, Command Z on the Mac to undo that modification. So now we have this wonderful compound path. The next step is to create this bit of depth in the background, and that's actually a duplicate of the overall crescent shape, that is the larger compound path. And so I'm going to select the entire thing by Alt-clicking again a second time on that already selected subpath outline. That would be an Option click a second time on the Mac, or if you wanted to, you could switch over to your black arrow tool. Totally up to you. And then I'm going to visit my Scale tool once again, which you get by pressing the S key. And I'm going to click down here at the bottom to set the transformation origin to the bottom of the shape yet again. And this time I do want to just drag straight down. So I'm going to position my cursor along this vertical guideline here. And I'm going to drag down like so until I see that I'm meeting that edge right there in my tracing template. And I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac. And then I'll release my mouse button. And then I'll release the Alt or Option key. And I create a duplicate of that crescent. I'll go ahead and fill that with black by going up here to the control panel, which is telling me I have a compound path selected. That's great. And I'll click on the first swatch, change it to black like so. Now, of course, at this point, my big problem is the depth edge is residing in front of the red crescent. I don't want that, so I'm going to grab this compound path right there inside of the Layers panel. Make sure that you've twirled open the drawing layer, and I'm going to drag it down to below the other compound path so we have the proper stacking order. And that, my friends, is how you create and exploit compound paths here inside Illustrator.